There's an odd circulating rumor out there that in order to have a nice EVA foam deck layout, you need to have aluminum paneling or fiberglass. You can't just do it on wood. That's simply not true. We're going to get rid of that rumor once and for all and show you exactly how to do it on wood. Sure, it's a little bit more labor intensive, and yeah, it won't last 50 years, but it's still going to be pretty epic. Really good results. It has some strengths that you might not have thought about to begin with, and it's about 10 times less than its equivalent in aluminum sheeting. So, if you want to do it out of aluminum, go ahead and knock yourself out. But if you want to do a budget way and still get pretty awesome results, stay tuned and watch this video. Okay, quick recap. Last time we were doing the framing, we slightly touched on the deck. We were using 1/2-inch 5-ply. The better, nice, finished 1/2-inch 5-ply from the hardware store. I mean, if you can find marine grade stuff, that is truly the best stuff to use, but if you can't, it's not a big deal. Just get the better quality plywood. FYI, do not use treated plywood. It'll be a waste of your money. It'll be useless. You can't sand it because the chemicals will get in there and cause you poisoning. So you can't do any of this stuff. You got treated plywood, go and return it and get standard fur-rated plywood like this. Long story short, we cut and prepped the deck and we resin coated it initially once on both sides to get it initial penetration and finish. And now we are ready to attach it after sanding it down. We also did all the side panels out of 3/16" hardwood plywood, which is going to be light and not load bearing and going to do its cosmetic job. And it's going to be prepped so we can stick the turf right to it also. So everything is getting prepped for some sort of adhesive backing, whether it be turf or skins, whatever. We also resin coated and installed the subfloor, and that's also out of wood. A pretty wide majority of the material in this boat is more or less all wood, with the exception of the framing and the hatches. So pretty good hybrid splits, and that is how I would recommend it. Also with sill compartments, we are using the Tough Tote from Home Depot, which is the easiest way to get like a sealed off compartment in conjunction with the dry hatches that we have installed from our website. So quick recap of how we're attaching the deck to the aluminum frame, and then obviously the hatches into the deck to the aluminum frame. So we are running a series of holes along the aluminum frame where I know it's gridded at, and we are recessing that. I don't know what the bit is. It's like a flat drill bit. It makes like a flat indent. So I use that because I'm using standard panhead rivets with a 5/8" grip. And so after I've kind of honed it out there, I drill all the way through. And now I'm just installing the rivets everywhere, every so often, every 6 inches to 8 inches. Wood, you have to remember wood is actually stronger per span length than its equivalent in aluminum per weight. So we're using a 1/2-inch ply, and its equivalent in weight, aluminum wise, would be about, I think, an 090 sheet of aluminum. If you get a 4x8 090 sheet of aluminum, it'll just flop right over. If you get a 1/2-inch sheet of 5-ply, it's stiff and it's rigid. So you gotta remember, like, the strength per span on wood is actually better, so you need less framing. Between the rigidity of the deck and all the pour foam we stuck into this boat, we should have a pretty nice, well-cruising boat. As in, when we hit waves with this little 14-footer, it should be significantly less painful and wave shuddering and spine chilling. That's in theory. We'll let you know. There's a lot of theories about this boat. They may all fail. What we do want to be cautious about is that wood does like to warp and do its organic thing over time, so the more rivets in that sense, the better. We're even able to put in countersink rivets flush into the recessed area where we routed that out to drop the hatch in. In order to run rivets directly through the hatch, through the wood, and into the frame, I would have needed a 5/8 or 3/4 inch grip countersink rivet. Couldn't find those anywhere. We didn't have them in stock in our store because we don't generally do decks like this. We took the 1/2-inch countersink rivets that we got from the kit and we used them inside the recessed area that we routed out. And it was flush before we stuck the hatch in. And to attach the hatch, we're just going to use a series of countersink screws. We marked with a Sharpie where the rivets were, so we didn't drill through the rivet to mount the screw in. So we didn't stack them on top of each other and mess that up. So they're offsetting each other. In conjunction, we have a nice solid bond. And also, what I forgot to mention, these hatches that have dry tracks, they by themselves are very strong. The hatch by themselves with the track system is actually its own very strong frame. And that also stiffens everything up significantly. When you step on it, it's got a really, really nice load rating. So if you're a heavier person, doesn't matter. I'm 100% sure this application will work. We've done similar applications. We'll start carrying longer rivets, though, that are countersink just for this application. quickly, let's go over the products and stuff that we use before we go too far into this and explain why and what we chose. So I chose specifically West Systems 105 epoxy resin because it is superior marine resin. You don't actually need to get this stuff. You can get polyester resin, which for the gallon is about half the actual, maybe less than half the actual cost of a 2-part like this. If you get a 2-part like this, it's gonna be a little pricey. This is about $100. This is another $50. If you want to get any additional slow hardeners, epoxy can be a little bit more expensive, around $150. But I mean, this will do an entire boat or 2 boats. This will do a lot of wood. This whole thing will do quite a bit. It's actually quite convenient just to get the direct amount, because for every part of this, just 1-to-1 ratio. It's 5-to-1 mixture, but 1 squirt to 1 squirt. It works so good. I mean, with everything we do in this garage, I have gone that route. That's why I went that route. You don't have to do that. I've been told that polyester resin for fiberglass actually works pretty much just as good as this. I'm not really sure if it's a 2 or 1 part. I didn't do enough research on it, but I'm almost positive it's just a 1-part epoxy. You have to wait for it to dry, you have to wait for it to do things, but you can achieve very similar results. And also a lot of people talked about Bondo resin, saying you can get a gallon of that for $40, which seemed to be like maybe a much better finishing resin. I don't know about an initial penetrating resin. Like these, they penetrate wood very good, and you want that penetration. I also got a lot of people saying, use other wood sealers and then resins, that way you don't waste all the resin. I disagree. When the resin gets into the wood, it kind of warps and blows the wood but it hardens it. It makes it like solid. And when you sand over it and you sand over the wood over that initial layer to get the smooth surface, you can tell the wood is completely changed. Like my bigger complaint with say like paint and some other things is, yeah, they'll go in there, they'll seep into the wood, they'll seal it, but will they harden the way epoxy does and keep the wood from doing its organic thing over time, which is popping and cracking and pulling apart? And the answer is no. But theoretically, there is an argument also for this stuff. This is oil-based enamel. We've been using this stuff since day 1 here to seal wood, and you get mixed reviews. People either love it or hate it, but there's an argument that even this will just work, because I have done just this, where I single coated, sanded, and then double coated a nice fine finish. It's all about the glossy finish. That is what the turf is going to stick to. All this turf, which we're going to show you the process, that is what it sticks to. And I've actually got 3M backing to stick to this on the side step of my bass boat trailer for my tiny boat that we did. It actually did work on top of wood. Has not failed yet. Will it fail eventually? Yeah, but then you could just argue that by the time this fails, you probably would have to redo the turf anyways. The carpeting is about to have to be redone. Redo it all. You resand, refinish, repaint, whatever. So maybe it's not a big deal. That's substantially cheaper. Budget-wise, $30 a can, $150. And then the polyester resin seems to be the most economical at $60-something for a gallon, but it's resin, so way better than paint. And then the Bondo resin, I gotta try Bondo resin. Guys, I don't know anything about Bondo resin. I'm gonna pretend like I know about it, but what people told me is that, it's epoxy with like material in it, and it's thickened, so it's probably a really good finishing resin. So what we used to finish was this stuff, West System 610, and then I had Total Boat sent me some of this. Thank you very much for that. We did finally use it. I know it was like months I've had this, but you guys, this stuff's pretty awesome. I'll say they're both pretty awesome. Both come in similar deals. They're both 2-part. They're both thick. This stuff is thicker, also way harder to squeeze out of a like, you see me physically struggling to squeeze this. I could not do it with a standard little like you kind of need an electric one like this to make it. This stuff was easier. Also not as thick, but it was thick enough to run a vertical surface. The whole thing about thickened epoxy is, for one, obviously you'll need Lex epoxy. You can put it in gaps, like gross gaps, and it will fill in the gaps. So we had a lot of gaps around the hatches because our routing job was subpar. But if you're good at routing wood, then you probably don't even need this. But it did work really good for sealing in gaps and holes or deformations in the wood to keep them level, where it would have taken 2 or 3 coats of the thinner stuff. It penetrates into self levels, but it does not fill gaps well initially. So you'd have to throw so many more layers, you lose more time. So that's why we use a thickened epoxy, but people are saying the Bondo resin will just do what this did for like a fraction of the price. So I will be looking into that, and you should look into that before you get these. But these worked really good in filling in the gaps. Both of them did. After I broke my caulk gun off pretty much on this stuff, I went and switched over to this a little bit thinner. Just the whole thing is they're able to stay vertical. They won't run like this stuff will. They will stay vertical because it's thickened. So there's a few levels to thicken. This is thick. This is even thicker. And that stuff is the thickest of the thick for like thickened marine epoxies, the toughest, but it's also really expensive and not cost effective to do what we did here, where I only use this specifically for hull repairs. Like if you have a gross hull like fracture or damage inside an aluminum boat and then welding's not really an option, this is probably your best option, this stuff. Just FYI. So now that you've seen what we used and why we chose to use it, when we chose to use it, let's go ahead and finish this thing. We filled in all the gaps around the hatches. to just make sure it's all level. So when we go and seal the wood on top for the last final time, then we sand it all together, it should be all flush. Small gaps here and there aren't going to matter too much under the turf, but too many of them or too lengthy of gaps you'll start to see little creases and voids in the turf over time. When you are going to put the final resin coat on, make sure you tape your hatches. You can tape the whole hatch or at least just tape the gap. Leave a little bit of the lip for the resin to kind of overlay on, and then go ahead and apply the whole thing. Spread it on. And if you're going to do a big large application like this by yourself, use the slow cure hardener. It'll give you time to lay it out with the standard little spreader, and then you can take the square trowel that we showed you with the teeth, and then you can level the whole thing out with the teeth, and the epoxy will have enough time to penetrate and self-level before it starts thickening. Once it starts thickening, it doesn't like to self-level and doesn't like to penetrate. It just obviously just stays there and gets sticky. So that was kind of a fail. Still worked it out. Still looks really good. Still a good enough finish that we can go ahead and lay the turf on. But just FYI, if you can get the slow hardener, you get even a little vial of it, it's definitely worth using. Another thing though with that tape, that painter's tape, you do not want the resin to cure and harden on the painter's tape. So once it thickens and starts to become viscous and start to cure, you can see it start going the beginning stages of curing, go ahead and tear that tape right off. If you try and tear it off after the resin is cured, you're going to have all kinds of other problems. If you're happy with the finish after that, then go ahead and pull it out and get ready for the next step. Otherwise, go ahead and give it another coat. At this point in time, we have to do at least the top part of the paint before we lay the turf. Part of how we're going to get this wood deck to match the aluminum hatches, which are powder coated black, is we're going to paint the inside parts of it black itself. Give it a nice edging, and we're also going to paint the inside of the gunnels and side rails, the end caps, and the bow plates. We were using self-edging primer because it's the safest thing to use now that we've got the entire deck in. If we could have pre-planned this a little bit better and I would have not procrastinated on the paint job, we could have etch washed the entire thing and epoxy primer the entire thing. That's the actual best thing you can do in and outside of an aluminum hull, but the Rust-Oleum self-edging primer is the next best thing. You can also very, very carefully etch wash the aluminum, wipe it off with a clean, wet cloth, and then use standard primer. And it's a little sketch, but you can do it. In conjunction with painting the hull, I also painted the outside of the decking, in the inside of the cockpit where the wood grain is. Anywhere that you could see the actual edge grain of the wood, it is now epoxied and coated and paintable, and so we painted the whole thing to match the powder coated black aluminum hatches. Then we sealed it in with standard silicone, clear stuff. We didn't really want anything else other than clear in there. So we jammed enough of it in there so water actually has no place to run. Can't get into the wood, can't seep in there because it's all epoxy resin coated, and can't go inside and seep down into the pour foam. It has no place to go but to the dry tracks. We are now kind of sanding and knocking down any of the last little bit that I really feel. You need to knock down at least a little bit of it around the hatches where the epoxy meets the hatches to kind of thin it out. I was told to sand it and rough up the surface. Now that I think about it, that was just pretty stupid because Hydroturf sticks to glossy, smooth surfaces better. I should have actually polished this up with 600 or 800 grit afterwards. It's still stuck there. That's how nice the turf is, but I just think that was a fail. After cleaning up all the dust and prepping it with alcohol, it is now a nice prepped and stickable surface. You can paint it, you can apply anything you want, but we are going to go ahead and stick the turf on it. It is long awaited. Let's get it done. Quick reminder that all of the products used in this entire series and in this video are on our website, tbnation.net, from the hatches to the framing all the way to the Hydroturf we're about to install. Please give us a like and a comment and share our videos here. That helps us trend more than you'll ever know. We really appreciate it. We're also very anxious to see whether or not you guys have ever finished your boats. We sell a lot of these hatches, we sell a lot of these things, and then you guys kind of just disappear. We wonder if anybody ever finishes the boats, but every once in a while on Facebook in our group, people post them, and they're freaking awesome. We'd like to see them, and we'd also like to repost them on our Instagram page if you guys have us. Tag us in your story, interact with us. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks. We got the first roll of Hydroturf coming up here. We're going to be using the Gator Cam because it is the most robust turf, meaning whatever gets on it doesn't really do too much to the turf itself, and it's easy to clean. So easy to clean, but still nice to have the feet on and not burning anybody, giving a nice pleasant experience. That's really why we're using it and not using carpet. Could carpet all over all of this, but you just wouldn't get the same result. It'd be much easier to turf this side and turf the inside. Prep and decontaminate all surfaces with rubbing alcohol and a microfiber cloth. Then for the turf, after you get your measurements and you get cuts, one thing you got to keep in mind is all the safety strip. It's actually very hard to mess this up if you just cut a safety strip. Safety strip meaning you just very, very lightly run a utility knife across the backing of the turf. And you pull that little sheet off and you leave the rest of the sheet on there. And once you have it lined up, then you pull off the sheet and then you just stick it down and apply it. If you can remember that one step, you can apply turf on pretty much anything. You can be the biggest noob ever and you'll still never mess it up. Also, do not press down on the turf until you are absolutely sure that is where you want it. Like that's where you want it to be forever. Because 30 pounds of pressure activates the adhesive. And then if you leave it there prolonged, especially if you leave it out in the sun, you'll never get that turf off of whatever it sticks onto. The stuff will stick to a dirty garage floor. The best thing to cut the turf with are these skinny little utility knives. I always get the disposable ones at Harbor Freight that are at the counter as you're checking out. They're just the skinny little utility knives. Whatever about the skinny blade, it cuts through, it binds less, and I know it's foam, but for whatever reason, the foam dulls that blade very quickly, like you wouldn't believe how fast. And I don't know, you're gonna have to switch out a lot. So get a few, or get small utility knives with replaceable blades. If this is your first time using turf with adhesive, I would do the side panels first just to get a feel for it, and then when you're ready to do the deck, then do it. It needs to be lined up. With the cut groove camo like this, it's a little more forgiving. Like if it's not perfectly straight, yeah, it's not so hard to tell. With the thicker line teak decking, you can immediately tell. And with other forms of it, it's really hard to line up with the pattern. Just the camo is the most forgiving stuff because you can honestly cut this up into a bunch of puzzle pieces and stick it together and it still actually looks pretty good. So don't worry about messing it up too much. In fact, if you actually destroy this later after you lay this nice turf job up and there's just a strip of it messed up, you can cut that entire strip up, cut a new strip, line it up right next to the old turf, and it'll look just like nothing ever happened. It might look a little newer than the old turf, that'll last, about a day. So the stuff is really repairable. I would always get one more sheet than what you think you needed. I thought I could get this done in 3 sheets, I ordered 4. And I ended up getting it done with 3, and I think some change. I ended up using the 4th sheet to do other things, and then I have a bunch left over to where if I need to replace a strip of this turf, any part of this turf at any given time, I just have it and I'll pull it out. I'll cut the piece out of the deck, I'll re-prep the surface, and then I'll stick that piece right in. Also, when you're butting the turf up to the edge, like on a wall or a vertical surface, and it kind of tries to stick against the wall and not go flat, get the edge of a roller or get a scraper and just press it down and it'll seat right in. And here's where it's really important for those small blades. They just do the best job of cutting, especially around the aluminum hatches, if you're going to do the hatches this way. All right, spoiler alert. We're way farther ahead now than what we just showed you in the video. We'll be getting to the rest of this. I just don't want to exhaust you in one video. I'll send another video showing you how we did all the rigging, and how we did all this, how we installed the struts, how we wired everything. All the wiring is done. We took our Weekend Warrior kit and our safety kit, and we installed it in there. All that's our TV Nation switch panel. And you can rig them to have all LEDs on constantly. I don't do that. I don't like that. I just like one. So you have the option to rig just one LED or two. Check out these floodlights. Boom! And I rigged them right. On my boat, they weren't rigged right, and they would actually blind you more than they helped you. But these will see everything. We also rigged a backlight. I mean, what would we be without a backlight? And then the other two are nav lights, and then we got the bilge, 1100 GPH bilge. Then we got a little floater down here, and we only have it rigged up as an auto. Like, you don't know your boat's sinking because you left the boat plug open, that kind of auto. And how you know it works is you take it and you flip it upside down. There, to activate the float, and it works. So the safety kit comes with this pretty nice pull light base for the back and the front, and the bilge pump with the adjacent hose and fitting. We just made these, but they just redirect water out. I always like to see the water go out of the boat. And I like to see it go right over the transom. I don't like to run the bilge hose through in here, out the side. I think that's stupid. It's old and archaic and not best practice. So we got the little dude here. We got the 1 1/8 inch fitting over here. It's just rigged out. Yeah, this is a brand new 20 horse. Now that I just had all kinds of money laying around to buy a brand new 20 horses because I sold my 25. Lo and behold, it equaled enough to get a decked out 20. So I sold a bone stock 25. As bone stock as it could get. Most people wouldn't even buy that motor. Sold it, and that extra 5 horsepower paid off for a 5 horsepower less, but all the bells and whistles. Electric starts. I mean, it doesn't have power trim, but it's got this sweet jack plate. We'll be getting this thing prepped up. We actually have to cut the handle off to make it work because the handle hits the jack. That sucks. So the handle's got to go. I could have cut it off with a multi-tool or something without screwing up the fittings here. I've just been thinking that maybe I need help on that. I was gonna burn off with a soldering iron too, like a really hot one. Probably would just cut that right off. Well, I'll think about it. The smartest, most intelligent way. If you got an intelligent way to take that off, I want to hear it in the comments, please. A lot of ideas. I guess you could also just pull this apart, but that's really risky to do it like by myself. So I probably need a person. This OD Green gator skins. They made this so long ago. They gave me a roll so long ago, and I'm like, this is gonna be awesome. I'm gonna use it. I never used it. I feel really bad. I've had this for like 2 years. Better late than never. Like sometimes I get a lot of this stuff and I just sit on it until like there's a project that's good for it. So this stuff it was a perfect project for it. This stuff is really good, really accentuates the whole boat really nice. It's just a different alternative to the black or the gray. These I actually got from Walmart. I don't know how durable they are. Like I don't know if I would trust them with my life. I mean they'll be all right. I mean, I don't know. And then like in serious waves, probably, I don't know. Like they're okay. Like it was like the Ozark, whatever. There's like a blowout in Walmart stuff. I went and bought all kinds of LEDs and whatnot. Oh yeah, did I tell you that our switch panels also come with a dual USB 3.0, like the best of the best that charges all the new smartphones, and then it also comes with a voltmeter. And then we got a bunch of other different designs: hydro dipped, carbon fiber, smoke, gunmetal, blah blah blah. Most of this is the Weekend Warrior electric kit, and then I added some things because, well, we added some things. But the Weekend Warrior electric kit would have ran the nav lights and the bilge and a little extra just fine. We also have caddies. We're gonna make like corner caddies that jam right into the corner, that do the same thing this thing does, where I just don't have them right now, but this thing is dope. I took it out of my boat and stuck it in here. This is gonna be my primary boat for a minute. I'm gonna rock this thing for a while. Let you guys know how it does. This turned out all right. This is the one sealed compartment we have with the plastic tote. But nothing's in it yet. This one, we stuck a bunch of crap in here just for the moment, but we ended up putting a hollow aluminum subfloor in here. So I remember we were cosplaying whether or not we were gonna run a subfloor all the way in here. I ended up thinking it was just the best way. Like we could have stuck a ton more crap in here, but then it would have all just got all wet because the water's going to collect in the front. It's either going to collect in the front of the boat or the back. And it's done that way on purpose, so water can't just mess with the foam. It's really hard. If your boat's constantly in the front leaning or back leaning, and then it's sealed around the edges like we did, it's really hard for water just to sit on that pour foam and screw it up. Unless you have a tear in the bottom of the boat and you don't know about it and it's leaking in that way, it's the only way the foams are going to get corrupted. You ever want to like get a gag? Go on Tiny Boat Nation on TikTok and look at what these people say. They're so stupid. It's like they were hiding under a rock. You guys are like way ahead of them. Anyways, like, end of rants. But I just got some stuff in here. If you guys see this at Walmart, you should get this. This is like the best butt pad ever. And it has a USB port. And I purposely planned this right here for one, so I could have the so I could just reach down and touch these while my hand's still on the tiller. That was always an issue when I had the electric box all the way over there and I had to go and open it. Now it's just like right here recessed in, and I can just touch it like at will while I'm motoring out. And then too, got my little like heating butt pad. I put that right here, and the USB goes like in here. It's gonna fit. It fit. What is this? Ignite power bank, power heating pad. Oh yeah, you can feel it. Oh, it feels so much better. Dude, that's gonna be so good. Like out there when you're just like miserable and nothing's biting, you're just out there freezing, wondering what you've done with your life. Then you can just sit on this and then everything will be all right. It also matches the turf. You know, this Gator Cam looks so awesome. Like in all the pictures I've seen, I guess those people don't know how to color grade or they just took it in really bad lighting because it always just looked terrible. But when you see it, it looks great. It is like the best looking turf. I also got these tracks today because we're out of options for like rod holders and stuff. And so I got these like Hobie tracks. I don't know, I bought them from Kayak Star. They go perfect right here. And that's thick enough. That's pretty robust angle that we have right there. So I'll probably end up mounting these right here. And that's hopefully a perfect solution to have some sort of rod holder that comes out from the track. Hopefully there's enough clearance right here. And then we can have rod holders. So that'll help if we want to troll for strippers or we want to, throw out a line for catfish. Got the NOCO port. Oh yeah, by the way, a bigger reason why this boat isn't done is because of the failed primer job I've done. And I got to redo it. And then a lot of it was because I didn't have epoxy primer thinner, but I got epoxy primer thinner in here. And so, yeah, it ain't gonna be no orange peel crap this time. I'm gonna make sure it happens. Like, that'll be a good episode. How you can not screw this up. Got the gas tank in here. The motor came with a 3-gallon. We stuck a 6-gallon. And then here's the onboard battery charger in here. The only place I could really put it. And then we got some D-rings here, some pad eyes to actually hold the gas tank in place so it doesn't slide around and hit things. Kind of a lot of weight in the back. Then we got the trolling motor and the starting battery in here. And here's the breaker. Got the TB Nation breaker, part of the electric kit right here. Oh, and part of the electric kit is also, it comes with a copious amount of 8 gauge, but we're gonna just switch it out to 6 gauge because most people are just wanting 6 gauge. They don't want to deal with 8 gauge. So the new kits are just gonna be 6 gauge probably. Then we got the ProNav unit working. We'll talk about the trolling motor setup here in a little bit. Yeah, we have the starter, we have the trolling motor, we have the house battery. So I've never ran a battery layout like this before. I've been told that it's advantageous for stability, that if you have weight and you're adding weight to your boat, weight itself doesn't actually add stability, but weight on each side to counterbalance actually adds stability. And by stability, I mean your boat won't roll any less, but when it rolls slower, so you as a person can anticipate it more, and therefore it does become more stable. So that makes a little more sense. Versus all the weight being in the core, where that would actually make it, because it's lighter on each side, it would roll easier. Makes sense. The concept makes sense. Somebody explained it to me. Thank you for whoever that was. Made sense. We're trying it out. Now we did make all this weight back here, like back 50 of the boat, including your own self, leaving this pretty blank up here, because probably a cooler here. A portable live well is likely going to be here a lot. If we're being honest, it'll probably be here quite a bit. And if not, a person's probably going to be here. So we're thinking it would eventually balance out. But when I'm motoring up on myself, I am worried about porpoising. So I've had this fin for a long time. I have not had to ever use it in the longest time. Not since I had my Carolina skiff. But that thing might go on here, because that will stop the porpoising almost immediately. Might lose a mile or two, big freaking whoop. I mean, that 20 plane my big boat. That thing will plane a whale. The thing is probably way overpowered for this whole boat. A 15 probably would have been sufficient for 2 people in gear, but we got a 20. Yay! Reinforced transom, brand new aluminum transom, awesome on the fly jack plate. Everything is ready, guys. I just need to paint it and then put the decals on, and then we have some trailer fails. The trailer, dang it. We're honestly really more like a week out from actually taking this thing on the water safely. Fully registered, fully everything. We've been doing the roller mods on all these trailers. We're going to do roller mods again. We've got the rollers from the store. We just got to weld actual rollers on. This whole trailer is ridiculous. It's like they took apart a carousel and stuck it together, like from a gate, and made a trailer. It's the most ridiculous trailer. It's all high. We got some smaller tires to drop the level a little bit so You don't have to back it in so far. We're hoping that helps. I don't know. We'll figure it out. If it's too much of a fail, we're just gonna make a new trailer from recycled other trailers, because buying all the metal for a new trailer sucks. It's like expensive. So there is blowouts on Garmin units because they're about to release their new UHD units, their Ultra UHD, whatever they are, and so those are gonna come out. So super good time to pick up some of these if you haven't picked them up already. And again, we got the power drive. Just last thing, got the power drive. We're running the power drive with the ProNav unit. I like it so much on this boat that I want to try it on a bigger boat. And the gain settings are exactly for a boat this size. We'll be putting a more aggressive gain setting. We'll be able to make routes, GPS, spot lock, nav lock heading, all that stuff. This is a 12 volt, 55 pound. Should be plenty for the boat. Really, I mean, thought about a 24 volt, but this boat is a Goldilocks zone boat. It's not quite, it's like 13.5 feet, fairly light. It's got a very strong V. It'll cut through the water really well. And strong Vs that are small boats actually do very well with 12 volt trolling motors. 16 footers even kind of do okay, for being honest. So I think this is an optimal setup here. We have like a serious winner. It's a serious winner. Didn't go all out. That was the whole point. Be a little conservative, be a little cautious, try a different layout. I think I'm gonna like this new layout. Might not like the lack of rod lockers, but whatever. I have pretty generous stowage under here. I have enough to add here. I honestly do have everything I need. I even added this thing. This is like a little kayak thing. I made a little mod with some angle and stuck it in here, and it's that just like you slide your phone right here, and then you got a little cord, and it hooks into the USB port here, and it just charges. So whatever, right? I'm pretty excited. For one, just to get in the water. I haven't been on water in months. I take the summers off to try to kind of grind. It's our busy season. Plus it sucks out there. I mean, I only fished like a few times during the whole summer. It's about to be the season to fish. And so rigging up, getting ready, got a few new things, got to make a few new baits, got to catch a new PB, you know, do it until you can't. All right, guys, see you next episode.